I'm Connor Old, and welcome back to another episode of Old's Oscar Countdown. And this week, we're going to be looking at a really fun category, a category that includes a lot of movies each year that sort of don't get a lot of nominations, but are definitely unique and interesting movies in their own right. I'm talking about Best Original Screenplay. So, if you guys are new to the series, what I do sort of every single week is I talk about a different Oscar category, and I predict what I think is going to get nominated for the 2019 Oscars. And at the top of the show, I talk about what movies are rising, what movies are falling, just to keep you guys updated on the Oscar race. These nominations aren't final, these aren't my final predictions. I will eventually have a video closer to the Oscars of my final predictions, one big sort of mega episode. And normally these videos, if you haven't been paying attention, have been coming out on Thursdays during the day sometime. That's when I try to nail them out, always Thursdays during the day sometime. And but next week, I do want to let you know that this episode will come out on Friday. That's just because I'm waiting for the Golden Globe nominations, which, from my understanding, are actually that Thursday. So I'll understand the Golden Globe nominations, probably record it that night, and then upload it on Friday. So you guys get both sort of a Golden Globe nominations reaction video, plus some predictions on Best Adapted Screenplay. But just to keep you guys updated, let's jump right into the beginning portion, which is movies that are rising and falling. One movie that's rising that you definitely should keep on your radar is Mary Poppins Returns. This is sort of the very first press screenings have come out, and people are really loving it. They love particularly Emily Blunt's performance as Mary Poppins. If you don't know, Mary Poppins has a great actually history with the Oscars. When the first film came out, it did very well at the Oscars, even though it was sort of a mainstream kind of a movie. Julie Andrews and definitely the songs and the costume design, they were all nominated for Oscars and did very well. So Mary Poppins Returns could have that sort of similar narrative. Even though it is this studio film, it has great talents and respected talents like Emily Blunt and Lin-Manuel Miranda. So this could be sort of a late surge surprise, especially in something like a Best Actress category for Emily Blunt, or definitely songs and something like costume design, and it could sneak in there for Best Picture. Who knows? But I've heard really great things about Mary Poppins Returns. Another thing I just want to sort of mention is A Star Is Born. A Star Is Born is still keeping its lead. It hasn't really fallen off all that much. The hype hasn't necessarily gone down at all. People still enjoy the movie. People are still looking back on it. There hasn't been a huge backlash. It may have peaked too early. We're not too sure yet, but I'm surprised though that it's still staying in this race. So A Star Is Born, don't forget about it, because I don't think really anyone has. And then falling, unfortunately, I think is Widows. This came out at the box office, did poorly for a couple weeks now, and it's just been getting trounced by things like Creed 2 and Wreck-It Ralph and Fantastic Beasts. Unfortunately, and I think it had a $50 million budget, but only opened to $12 million, which is a poor performance. I saw the movie. I really enjoyed the movie, which shows it disappointing. But people like Viola Davis for this movie. Even you could say something like Best Adapted Screenplay. I know some people had it in. Daniel Kaluuya for Best Supporting Actor. These guys could all fall to the wayside, unfortunately, because The Widows, because it's sort of, like I said before, it was positioning themselves as a commercial movie. It had to do well at the box office. And kind of like how I predicted, unfortunately, it didn't do well at the box office. So that may knock it out of the race completely. We don't know yet if people still will appreciate this kind of movie. So let's just jump into my first nomination, which is The Favorite by Deborah Davis and Tony McNamara. Now, even though this movie is directed by Yorgos Lanthimos, it has not been, it was not written by him. Now, we talked a little bit about last week in terms of his sort of favorability with the Oscars. I'll remind you, he was nominated for Best Foreign Film for Dogtooth. He was also nominated for Best Original Screenplay for The Lobster. So now, while I haven't seen the movie, from what I've heard, is that it's definitely not his style. If you don't know his style, there's a lot of deadpan dialogue, straight delivery, very idiosyncratic, specific director. Even though it's less of that because he didn't actually write this dialogue, he still directed it. So the performances that he gives in certain scenarios are straight-laced and very sort of odd and deadpan in a lot of ways. Even from the trailer, I sort of get that with the certain camera angles he makes, and just by the fact that everyone thinks, including myself, that maybe all three of these ladies from The Favourite will get nominated, that these actors have something great to work with, that they have great dialogue, some sort of witty lines, there's some sort of funny scenarios, sort of absurd black humor, and over-the-top maybe scenarios that really work well to the absurdity of it, which is such a great balance between the sort of over-the-top and very sort of pristine 1800s sort of world, a rich world, versus the sort of pettiness of sort of the plot of the film. I think that there's going to be some great lines in this movie. I've heard great things. The performances definitely seem like they have something to sort of chew on and rely on the back of the screenplay. So even though maybe this one may not win, because I'm unsure of the strength of The Favourite, I definitely think this is a movie that they will at least really appreciate and like, and one that I think is going to get nominated. Okay, Green Book. This is by Nick Vallelonga, Brian Hayes Curry, and Peter Farrelly. So this is more people to the screenplay, but this is from a movie that is really well liked. And if Green Book is as serious of a best picture contender as I think it is, as other people think it is, this is one of these categories where it has to get a writing nomination for it to be sort of a serious contender. Not necessarily always, but a lot of times it's a great sign of strength. Similar talked about last week with getting a director nomination. Maybe not as important, but still a very strong sign that this is a serious contender. It has to sort of check these boxes if I were to sort of give it my prediction to win. And this movie is helped by having a good screenplay. Everyone loves the way it makes you feel, and that has a lot to do with the screenplay. The sort of balance between the heart of the movie versus the comedy. The directing in the movie isn't flashy. There's some really funny moments in the film versus some really sort of heartfelt moments of the film. It's classic, it's traditional, it is what you've heard, but that doesn't mean it's funny. It's got some really funny moments from Viggo and Mahershala, and they're back and forth. There's a great fried chicken scene. There's these scenes that you actually remember from the movie that are really funny, that make you laugh, because this is from Peter Farrelly. He is a really funny and talented writer. But then there's also these heartfelt moments. So there's a great balance that is seen here with something like Little Miss Sunshine, for example, does a similar kind of balance that did well at the Oscars. So not only is it a strong Best Picture contender, I think the screenplay is definitely a strong contender, even if it wasn't a Best Picture contender. So that really helps out Green Book in getting in this category. The next book is Roma for Alfonso Cuarón, and kind of the unique thing about this screenplay is the lack of it. There's some sort of not a lot of grand scenes or sort of unique dialogue that goes on. There are certain sort of visual things that you think about, and sort of the rides in the streets of Mexico, or her just cleaning that alleyway over and over again. I mean, it gives it sort of a lyrical, poetic kind of sense to it, but that's the visual storytelling. Not necessarily people relate to the screenplay, and for a lot of people, the screenplay doesn't necessarily mean structure the way maybe I think of it. A lot of people, it's just dialogue, it's what's being said, and that's the sort of negative against Roma, is that it could be seen as because it's not flashy, there isn't a lot of dialogue in it, it could be left out, it could be surprised to be left out, and really could hurt its Best Picture chances. But I think they actually did a good job between how the maids speak with each other versus how the maids speak in front of the families, and then there's two different types of subtitles. There's like a Spanish, and then there's this Mexican dialect, which unfortunately I'm forgetting the name of, that sort of go back and forth. So really, this movie can go two ways. People really love this movie. They relate to Alfonso's sort of personal journey and how he poured his soul out into the screenplay, into the story. It's a very autobiographical story, so they'll give him the screenplay nomination. Or they go, this is really Alfonso's directing thing. The screenplay's just secondary. It's not that flashy. It's not that unique. Nothing really happens. I don't remember it, right? So it's not really a best screenplay, even though they really like the movie. So that will be a telltale sign. If Roma gets in for best screenplay, it could be more of a contender than we think. The next one I went with Vice from Adam McKay. This is a movie that we are just starting to see for now for the very first time, and people are relating it a lot of it at least to The Big Short. And if you don't know, The Big Short has this really smart and witty sort of dialogue mixed with sort of political satire. And from all I've heard is that it has the same sort of style to it, and same kind of essence and sort of political allegories that are going on today. Plus you have, you know, the potentially 3 acting nominations from this movie to get in. So, you know, even from the trailer you can tell really what a great writer is supposed to do is make sure each character seems like they're written from a different writer, that they have their own sort of cadence and they're a different person, and it's not just one person's dialogue said by a bunch of different people. It should be unique to each person. And I think by the fact that, you know, from the trailer you have Dick and his sort of slow way of speaking versus sort of George Bush and his southern dialect, there's already that combination that we see there. So I believe that should be the case from multiple different actors. In terms of the screenplay. So I think people will appreciate the sort of comedic elements versus the sort of black humor that Adam McKay is now trademarked for in these last couple movies. The drawback of the movie is that it is a true story. These are real characters. But as of right now, I believe it's campaigning as Best Original Screenplay. So maybe some people may think it's adapted and get confused, or maybe people will think it's just not original enough to get in for this category. Those are both possibilities, but I'll keep you updated as more people see Vice and it gets more of a critical reaction. My final slot goes to 8th Grade by Bo Burnham. I will talk about the sort of other possibility that has a strong possibility, but as right now, this is a movie that people love for its honesty and its enormous heart. It never has this young generation, this internet-reliant generation, been captured on film so well. And a great narrative by the writer-director, first-time writer-director Bo Burnham, who just won the Breakthrough Director Award at the Gotham Awards, to really, you know, a 30-year-old guy to write this story about a 12-year-old girl. They've been doing a lot of press together in a lot of the Oscar sort of circuit as a great duo that's really sort of worked out well, and they're charming and they both work well together. And really every year, this last slot's so hard to determine. You know, some years it's something like The Lobster, this sort of weird movie that gets in for that 5th slot. Other years it's, you know, 20th Century Woman, it's that heartfelt family drama. So this year it's either this movie or First Reformed. So I don't know which one it's going to be. Now, maybe as I'm saying this, 8th Grade, they may go for that sort of movie because it's more heartfelt. We're seeing movies like Green Book and Mary Poppins Returns. The movies that make you feel good. I think this is more of a feel-good type of year. Even A Star Is Born is a sort of sweeping, I think, sort of romantic drama in a lot of ways, and it's very emotional. Whereas last year was very sort of angry. This year is definitely more hopeful, more escapist. So I think they may go with this one, but I'm not too sure. Actually, the early sort of nominations and wins and awards that we've been seeing that have some actual clout have been sort of actually going the other way. So let's just jump over to my honorable mentions. I have here First Reform. This is written by writer-director Paul Schrader. Paul Schrader is an incredibly respected writer. He's written Taxi Driver and Raging Bull, and directed movies on himself, of course. And this actually won Best Screenplay at the National Board of Review and won Best Screenplay at the Gotham Awards. So people really appreciate the screenplay. It's very strange. It's got a great central performance by Ethan Hawke. So my thinking right now is that they're going to reward Ethan Hawke for First Reformed, and that's where the love of that film's going to go. And then 8th Grade, because it has nowhere else to go, it's going to go into Best Original Screenplay. 8th Grade is also a movie that will stay on people's radars. If my predictions are right, the Golden Globes will nominate Elsie Fisher for Best Comedic Actress. You know, it could get in even for screenplay or for a best picture for sort of comedy or musical. I definitely think it will still be seen, at least in the Golden Globes eyes, and as the circuit goes around, as an Oscar movie, as an Oscar player. It's not a movie that people are going to forget about. So I think that 8th Grade could be that sort of one that still stays in people's minds, and they give that original screenplay, and they give First Reform love to Ethan Hawke for Best Actor. However, it has been winning, beating out movies like The Favorite for Best Original Screenplay. So that being said, I could see a scenario where Vice gets knocked out in 8th Grade and both First Reform get in, which would be great as well. You know, I really enjoyed First Reform. It's a very strange screenplay. I can definitely see them nominating that. Another strange screenplay is Sorry to Bother You. It's very satirical, it's very over the top. It's one of the most original movies. I mean, if it's the idea of being the most original and unique screenplay, this may get nominated, but really the top 6 are the 5 I mentioned and First Reformed. Quiet Place could get in, but if they, sort of movies were to get sort of looked at, they would have been nominated and sort of awarded at the Gotham Awards, the Critics Awards, which right now they actually unfortunately haven't. So really the big honorable mention is First Reformed, and it's sort of a back and forth. I may eventually go First Reformed, but stay tuned for those predictions when I give my final update. Stay tuned next week. Remember, the episode's coming out on Friday because of the Golden Globe nominations, so I'll be giving a sort of full reaction video at the top of the show, while also giving those adapted screenplay results and predictions of what I think is going to get nominated. That's about it. I hope you guys enjoy the episode, and until next time, stay tuned.